Griffin Park is my personal time capsule. I had a break from the football, but I grew up here. I started coming here as a young child. I spent my teens here. I brought my children here when they were young. I had my first job here. My first boyfriend was somebody I met here. I'm not still with him. And having had a break and then come back as a proper full-time supporter a couple of years ago, nothing had changed. The ground still looked the same, the songs were the same, the people were the same. I'd managed to buy tickets 2 seats down from people that I'd stood on the terraces with back in the day. And it was like coming home. It was so emotional.
Well, I was introduced to the club by my dad, who was a second generation supporter. His dad had come in from Norfolk and moved to London for work. And he took my dad along for the Preston Cup tie in 1938. So my dad was a fan from about 1942 to 1954, when he got other priorities when he got married.
Started life as an Arsenal fan through my dad, who lived down the road in Feltham, grew up there. He'd come to Brentford games often as a kid, including being chased through the Royal Oak End by some Charlton fans in the 70s, I believe. And then he brought us in 2003 to our first game, me and my brother Reece, that is, to our first game in 2003. February 2003, lost 2-1 to Crewe.
My family, I'm fourth generation now. My great-granddad came back from the First World War, shell-shocked and not particularly well. He wanted to come back to watch Brentford, so my grandmother, who was an only child, would come with him. She then married and had 3 children, and she used to bring my dad along. And then shortly before my 4th birthday, I think, December 1967, Dad brought me to watch Brentford play Guildford Town, and that was it.
The best players have all been, I think, aside from Stan Bowles in the 1980s, I think the best players have all been in the last 7 or 8 years. Hotter and Alan Judge, who is also my favourite player.
Obviously, I'm always going to remember Hotter in the last minute against Fulham, scoring that. I even screamed more than I screamed at that Everton game when that goal went in.
Bob Booker was my hero. He scored a hat-trick on his debut against Hull City. We beat them 7-2, and I was standing down. The tunnel used to be halfway along the Braemar roadside then, and I remember for some reason I was stood next to the tunnel watching the game that day, and I stopped him and got his tie-ups from his socks, embarrassingly, which I still have. And he was just, I don't know, the fact that he scored a hat-trick on his debut. I remember going to watch Brentford at Fratton Park, and he scored then as well. And the obsession continued.
The Doncaster game, I think it's the most memorable game of the last 53 years. And as a football fan, you accept the highs and the lows. And that one was gives you renewed determination to carry on. So although you feel low on the afternoon, it was an outside chance that we were going to get promoted. It was there in the hands and taken away from us.
When Marcelo Trotta missed that penalty, that was a real low moment.
Nobody will ever forget Doncaster at home. That was the lowest of the low.
It was written in the stars that we were going to score that penalty. Kevin O'Connor was going to score that penalty to send us up to the Championship. And then it was just a bit of a blur what happened next, with Trotta taking the ball for himself and then hitting the crossbar. And it was just all unfolded in front of you. You could do nothing about it. It just happened so quickly, and then it was just walked out of there in absolute silence. I remember the feeling of everyone was just bizarre. Just such a strange afternoon.
As usual, as I say to my sons, it's not about, you don't get upset when you lose these things. You get angry and more determined to get on. You cry when you win, you get more determined when you lose.
It's a real cliche, but the thing I miss most about Griffin Park has to be sort of the atmosphere of it and the routine. Parking in the same place, coming through the same turnstile, walking through the same entrance to Ealing Road, to the same bar at the same time, most Saturdays when work didn't interfere. That's what I miss the most.
I think definitely the atmosphere on match days. I mean, it's the atmosphere that makes the whole experience, and the empty ground is not the same. It has to have a match on and the fans present.
Really confident that we will take the atmosphere with us from social media and the channel there. I've got season tickets for the front row, the West Stand. I've no doubt at all in my heart that it is going to feel the same, and I am really excited and looking forward to the new season when we can go.